The following episode of Fanside is presented by Remax Jack for all your GTA real estate needs. Check out Remax Jack, remaxjack.ca. He can help you find what you are looking for, apartments, condos within the GTA. Of course, the market has never been hotter than it is right now. Who would have thought during a pandemic that it would be this hot? But definitely make sure you check him out. He is the presenting sponsor of Fanside. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fanside on racecanada.world and on YouTube. We are so excited to bring in Canada's pit reporter. I've known him for so many years watching motorsports. He's also a pit reporter for the NASCAR Pinty series. We've actually heard him in the booth for the Road to Indy series last year. And he is a host of a brand new show on Rev TV Canada called Rev Culture TV. Todd Lewis is on Fanside. Todd, welcome. We are so glad to have you.
Thanks for the great intro and the big build-up. I hope I live up to those expectations. But it's nice to talk to you guys. Always nice to talk to race fans, especially in the off season. Gives us a little something to look forward to.
And that's the name of the game, right? It's been a very, very, very long off season. Obviously, we'll talk about kind of your past and obviously the show. But let's go back and talk about 2020.
Sure.
It was a very odd year for racing. And I want to put this kind of in perspective, hopefully, and hopefully you can help us do that. Racing in Canada is not what it is in the United States. It's very different. Hockey is Canada's thing. What do you think the effect of 2020 and the COVID pandemic had on racing in Canada specifically? And do you think it hurts 2021?
I think the impact is going to be felt for a period of time going forward, just because we're still in an uncertain time as to when we'll be on top of the pandemic, whether it's through vaccines and the like. It's going to take time for people to become vaccinated. It's going to take time for people to become comfortable going out in large groups and gatherings and in public again. The good news is that we did get some racing last year in 2020. There were some events. Some events had to be held without a crowd, without fans allowed, but there was some racing. There were events as well across Canada that were able to hold spectators, whether it's out on the East Coast. I did some work last year, and I will be again this year for the Avion RS1 series that runs in British Columbia, and they're running in Saskatoon this year. They were able to hold their events. Some they had to have without fans, but their business model works with that. So it's hopefully going to continue to move in the right direction, that we're going to be able to do that. The good news is there seemed to be some willingness to allow golf courses to open up because they're outside and you can distance. Well, you can do the same thing at racetracks too. So
yes.
let's hopefully see more of that happening this year. If people are smart, if they're responsible. I was working at a number of events that did have crowds. Everybody understood the process and worked through it pretty smoothly. So I always remain hopeful. So I still am that we'll have better and bigger crowds this summer.
Awesome. That's what we wanted to hear. That was the answer we were hoping for.
And we've kind of talked about this with some of your colleagues that we've had on the show too. 2020 was kind of a good test session for a lot of things. And even in 2019, like going to Wyant Group and splitting that race into a double header, but 2020 was all double headers. But like the one and done sort of race day, come in, get it done and go back out type thing. So if there is anything good about this, there's maybe finding ways to trim expenses, which is obviously such a huge thing to race teams, particularly like Cam said with Canadian race teams, where a racer's budget, it goes right into the race program and probably very little else.
That's true. It's sometimes you're forced to find new ways to do things. And this, of course, has forced everybody to find new ways to do just about everything. But this was last year in the Pinty series, we were presented with, okay, we can run these events. They're double headers. The teams are spaced further apart. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to have fans in, but here's what we can do. What can we learn from this going forward? Well, double headers, I think everybody really liked them in terms of the teams and the drivers. They made for great television as well, which is good, because that's kind of my business. And it sort of thought, yeah, we can do this, and maybe we need to explore this as a real opportunity to do more double headers with the Pinty's teams. And maybe it's not even necessarily one day, but you could do a different kind of doubleheader by doing one race at two different tracks if they're in close enough proximity, is another thing that's been talked about.
Right.
So explore all the opportunities to do different things. And again, it's about creating a product that people want to see and want to consume. And if this is something that fans are going to enjoy, then let's be open to all the ideas.
Yeah, I think that, I think all businesses, my workplace has, they've had to completely restructure their things from working, being in the financial district, being in an office with 200, 300 people. All of a sudden you can't do that anymore. Right. So with racing, I would imagine the same thing as you had a pit, you had the infield full of people. Right. Well, now if you can't do that anymore, hopefully, there are, ways to do that. Let's continue on this conversation, because we did have a season last year, and it was a really good season. Yeah, it was only 3 weekends, but the racing still phenomenal in the NASCAR Pinty series. We went to some new tracks, Flamborough. We returned to Sunset, and then wrapped it up at Chicasa. Of those tracks, obviously, obviously they all put on a great show. But is there a race that stands out to you from last year that was, this was an awesome one?
It's a bit of a Sophie's choice to try to pick your favorite. It was really interesting once at the first weekend of the year when we got going, because it looked like, okay, it looks like Jason's going to be all right. Looks like Jason Hathaway's going to be okay. And it's like, oh, there's that 74 car. Oh, look, he's catching him. He's going to go, he's turning him around, and he's not going to win the first race. Okay. And it was interesting. And there's like, okay, it's on. This is not, everybody realizes it's a short season. We're not easing into this by any stretch of the imagination. No, it's on right from the beginning. And every position was hard fought. There's a little bumping, there's a little grinding. I'm good with that. That's stock car racing. It's okay. It's okay by me. So it was, and I guess that was the part that really I noticed as much as anything, is that it was really intense right away. And I think part of that was because we had such an extended off season. There was so much anticipation of, are we going to go? Are we going to go? Are we going to go? And we finally did. And it was just, release the hounds, and everybody was off. And it was fun to see right away.
Yeah, it must have been, as you said, there was so much build up to it. It was such a long time coming, at least from the fan perspective too, that we didn't know what was going to be, if there was going to be any sort of season. And then the news broke that there was, and then, as you said, release the hounds. And Joel said when he was on here, and Kevin also, which was great to have him on the show as well, to explain where a racer's mind is when those things happen. That was great to talk to Kevin about, and really get the perspective of in the helmet.
They have long memories about what happened previously. It could be from a previous race, could be from the previous season, could go back even further than that, which was the case with Kevin Lacroix and Jason Hathaway. It was just, there was a race a couple of years ago on the East Coast that I thought, I was wronged. So it's like, all right, you remember that, you carry it forward. It's the, you know, I guess it's the same principle that they have in hockey, where, you know, take a number and remember it. It's going to come up again, or the play will circle around again, and you'll have the opportunity to remember and take advantage of it. But they have long memories. And I think that's one of the things I admire about them, and why I enjoy the sport so much, is that they're so keenly focused on big details, like whether it's an incident from 2 or 3 seasons previously, or small minor things that they notice, they pick up on. And that's what makes the difference. That's the difference between winning and losing. Sometimes it's a small little thing, a small little something that you've done differently, or you found a better way around. If your line is adjusted by a couple of centimeters one way or the other, maybe that makes the difference in how you're getting around the corner. And it is that close, the scrutiny that they put themselves under, as much as anything.
Yeah.
And sorry.
Everybody all at once.
It's kind of like a family atmosphere, in terms of like they're around each other race to race, and season to season. So they kind of figure out things about each other. And it's a matter of adjusting on the car and getting it working to the best of theirs and their team's ability. So it's kind of a family atmosphere that way, that they fight like family too.
That's exactly it. I mean, you know, if you have brothers and sisters or cousins or whatever, you get along great and you love the family time or whatever. But if you're competing in a game, if you're competing in a sport and stuff, it gets a little intense sometimes. And sometimes that the intensity and the adrenaline get ramped up, and it's like, oh, okay, this is serious. It's on, but it's the same thing, that it's your family, in the sense too, that if you're having a problem, if you're having a tough day, that, you know, someone will walk by and say, you're all right, everything's going to be okay. If you need something, they'll be the first one, the one that's as competitive with you as anybody else. They'll be the first one to say, yeah, I got that. I can help you out. No problem.
That's right.
It's quietly done and efficiently, and they'll fight you tooth and nail once you do get back out on the racetrack.
Yeah, I think what we can definitely say about the Canadians is they don't race without their emotions. Definitely very, very opinionated after races. They definitely will show their emotion after races. You've seen a lot being in the pits. Can you speak on 1 or 2 skirmishes down there that got really testy? I mean, we've seen, you know, Jeff Gordon with Brad Keselowski, how that got so intense, and you can see all the pit reporters are being pushed all over the place. So is there one out there, or a couple out there, that you can speak of, back NASCAR, if it's Pinty Series, IndyCar, whatever?
Yeah, well, there's usually a few. There's it's not so much that it's a confrontation and fists are thrown or whatever, although that does happen. Excuse me, that does happen occasionally when, you know, emotions get so high. A couple of years ago, Caden Lapsevich punted 2 or 3 players out of the way to excuse me, to go on and win at Jukasa. One of them was DJ Kennington, and he had a car to win that night, and he came over and didn't say congratulations, but expressed his displeasure after the race, and understandably so, because, you know, Caden was using the cow catcher on front and he was pushing guys out of the way. It was just, I'm going through and I'm going to win this race, because it's, you know, he felt it was important to him. And again, that's fine, but racers have long memories. And there are times after a race. There was the year of Andrew Ranger and Kerry Mix at the Grand Prix Trois-Rivières, where Mixie, I think they still use the photo of Mixie going across the hood of Ranger's car, and it's up in the air. The two of them are forming an A shape. I think they still use that photo as part of their promotional. Well, they had words, we'll say, afterwards, partly in English, partly in French, at GP3R, and I was standing in between them to interview the winner of the race, and it was just, it's very tense sometimes. But again, after a few minutes, it's, you know, the next weekend or whatever, they'll pass each other, they'll talk, they'll laugh and they'll joke about it too. But isn't that what we crave and what we want in motorsports or everything, is you want the passion, you want the emotion. That's why they get into it. That's why they devote their life to it. That's why they put so many hours in through the week, work their regular job for 40, 50, 60 hours a week, put in just as many hours to prepare the car, get ready for the weekend. So many of the members on the Pinty series teams, they're volunteers. They don't get paid. They'll get lunch bought for them. They'll if they have to travel to a race, their travel costs will be covered, but they give their time, they give of themselves, and they give their emotions. That's one of the things I like so much about working pit lane, and why I've done it for so many years, because I've done the race call and different series and some PA announcing and stuff, but you're not in the middle of what's going on during the race. It's not always the best place to watch, but you see what's happening and you feel what's happening, and just the run of emotions from our guys out in front, and it's absolute elation when it looks like he's going to win, and it all goes away in an instant. And then there's the frustration and the disappointment, and then the understanding and acceptance that this is what happens in racing sometimes. And then it's okay, deflate the tires, start packing up, we got to go. And it happens in such sequence and with such regularity. It's that's the roller coaster of emotions you just love riding.
Yeah, you must see, like, you have it firsthand. You're looking up on the pit boxes and seeing the leader get spun out and that leader's team on the pit box and their raw emotion from it. And as you say, post race and that sort of thing. And speaking to the whole family thing, Fuel Media and the TSN bunch, you've been a part of that for a number of years now. So you guys have to be as close to being family as it gets too, eh, Todd?
We absolutely are. You don't spend as much time with the people in the crew as you do without being close. People do think and still say to this day and ask if Joel Robinson, who's the producer of the shows, and ask if we're brothers, and if we're related. So Joel actually made up T-shirts a couple of years ago that said, I'm Todd, Joel is not my brother, or something like that. But it's just we're that close. It's part of why we're able to do what we do too, because it's not a large crew, it's not a large group. Over the years, some people have moved on to do other things and stuff, but it's such a close group. You travel on the roads. I mean, we've gone on the Western Swing. What we've done in previous years is we travel out to the first race and we stay for a few days in between Saskatoon and Edmonton, and we do the road trip from one to the other and have a ball doing it and have a few laughs. There was a 1 year a couple of years ago that Dave Bradley wasn't with us because he was working and he couldn't make the road trip. We were texting him and asking him trivia questions along the way on our journey across the prairies into Edmonton. So he would reply back with answers. This was just how we were passing the time. And it's funny that occasionally if you give someone else a ride on another team or someone's spouse or friend or whatever that's traveled to a race in the journey, and you see them at the airport, you just give them a ride wherever you're going if you got room. And it'll get mentioned afterwards. It's just, oh, thanks. That was so enjoyable. I had a great experience, and it was a lot of fun to hang out with you guys. And thanks. We enjoy it too. But that's part of why we do this too. So we're fortunate enough to get paid a couple of dollars to do it, but it's working with great people that you enjoy spending time with that makes all the difference in the world.
For sure. And
you guys, making that trip out west now. We have a series out west that I've actually been following on G-Force TV, Caviar Motorsports, and the RS1 series. And all of a sudden started watching these videos and I recognized the voiceover was you. So are you able to talk about the RS1 series? Because it looks very intriguing. I love Area 27. What a beautiful facility. And I'd love to know a little bit more about that series because, wow, does it look promising.
It's a really fun series, and it's their car count will be up to 20 this year. Awesome. They're building more cars. They'll be up to 20 this year. They race at Area 27, which is a 3-mile beautiful road course in the Okanagan Valley.
Yeah.
That Trevor Siebert and Jacques Villeneuve talked about, and Trevor went out and did, they all walked around. It's like, yeah, this kind of corner here, this kind of corner here. There's elevation changes. It's great. They're spec cars. They're all built by Avion. They're all exactly the same in terms of performance. So it's based on what the driver can do. And that's what determines how successful you are. They raced the oval at Penticton Speedway, and they're going to race at Wyant Group Raceway this year. In fact, that's going to open their season in June. But it's a really fun series. It's growing really quickly. There's some other things that are starting to happen, and some of them are pretty significant. I can't tell you about yet, but I'll promise I'll come back when they're ready to be publicized. But there's a lot of really good things happening with that series.
And it's
nice.
Something I think that's overdue. We did have in NASCAR, they had the Western Series that was out there for many years. And then when, NASCAR came in, it didn't really continue. So it's almost like that is the core that was still left over from the Western Series and has built this back up again. Obviously, the NASCAR Pinty Series goes out west. They went out east. They have a main, I guess you'd say, hub in Ontario and Quebec. That is the majority of the teams, majority of the drivers. If you were going to go out west again, obviously we haven't gone to Sun Valley. I think it's called Motoplex now. I'm not even sure if it's still around. I hope it is. But would Area 27 be something that you think the Pinty Series could look at possibly running on in the future?
I'd love to see it, actually. I think it would be a real fun challenge for the Pinty Series. I think the way to do it is to make a real Western swing, where, say, if you went to Saskatoon, if you went to Edmonton, and you went to Area 27 and maybe did the oval at Penticton Speedway too, if you did 4 races out there. Now, again, that presents all kinds of challenges.
Right.
Because it'll be a long trip to do all at once. How do you have enough crew? How do you make it work logistically? Right. But yes, I'd love to see it. That's the unique and challenging part about motorsports in Canada, is that you can't go to a half a dozen or 8 unique little tracks in a short proximity, because the country doesn't have the same kind of population, although it's a bigger square footage than the United States. So that's why it's a regional series, but it's a cross Canada series too, and it's a bit challenging from the expense standpoint. So that's it would be great even if there were enough teams out west to kind of supplement with the Pinty Series. Maybe there's a few part-time runners in the east, if you had a few more part-time runners in the west. And I know there's drivers out there that would like to do it. And again, it's kind of making all the economics work is the difficult and challenging thing sometimes. But again, we'll get through the stuff that we have to get through. And I think we'll start to move back in the right direction in the future.
Yeah, we're going to be in the sort of rebuilding stage, moving into whatever 2021 holds schedule wise. But as I said, the 2020 season was something of sort of an R&D session and figuring out what works and what doesn't. So that's all great to see. Do you see this is, if it's pitched the right way, an opportunity for some sponsors to get involved in the sport?
100%. I think it's a great opportunity that if you, and this is partly on the teams to do this too. This is part of the growing process and the learning process, that some teams are better at it than others. Some teams have people that help them out and do this, to go and seek and find sponsors. Now, again, you can't just say, here, give me a 5-figure or 6-figure check and I'll put you on the side of my race car. Well, that's great, but how does this help me with my business? How does this help me grow my business? Because that's the objective for these potential partners. You've got to be able to show them how you can benefit them. There are ways to do it. And I do believe that it can be a very worthwhile investment for the right partner with the right team in the right series, and there's a plan. And it's not just about being on the race car. It's about all of the other things that go along with it. So you're on the race car. Are you going to be part of the broadcast and television coverage? Social media is such a big thing now with drivers and teams, and in terms of influencing trends in society and purchasing power. So you have to have a social media presence. What opportunities are there for sponsor partner activation, whether it's a giveaway or some sort of way to promote your product at events? Or is the team going to do appearances at the sponsor's location to help them promote and attract a crowd? There's all different kinds of ways to make it work, but that's got to be part of the approach of teams too. When you're looking for someone and asking them for a significant amount of money, even if it's not that significant, even if it's only $500 or something, that's still a lot of money to me. So if I'm going to give you $500, I want to know what you're gonna do with it. How's it going to benefit me? So that's the really key part, and it's a challenge with so many other series, so many different sports and different potentials for partners to put their money into.
What do you think the selling point is if you're a team in Canada that is, so let's talk specifically, let's say the Pinty series.
Sure.
You're one of the things that Graydon and I, we talk about a lot. We talk a lot, let's just say. That's why we're doing this. And one of the things that I absolutely love to do is create fictional race cars for the NASCAR Pinty series with major corporations from Canada. What is the pitch to a corporate world? Because it isn't something that we really see anymore in our series. We saw it a lot with NASCAR, but it seemed like there was this shift, and then there was a lull, and we saw it, I think, in the Cup series as well. And it seems like all of a sudden there's been this huge uprising with some new sponsors coming into racing. So how would you approach it to a corporate company?
The big thing that everybody will tell you is, I don't like business terms and the term of the moment or whatever, but everybody will use the ROI, which is return on investment. And that's the thing. If you're asking someone for $500, $1,000, pick an amount, it doesn't really matter what it is. And to fund a race team is a lot more than that. $500 won't get you a set of tires, and you're going to use a bunch of them through the weekend and through the season. So it costs a lot of money, and that is a challenge. So if you're going to ask someone for a lot of money, you have to show them how you're going to give them a return for that money. Sure, that's great. You have a billboard on your car. That's part of it. So people at the track, if you're having spectators, you will be able to see it on television. That's great. And Joel and the rest of the group, we try to do a good job in helping people that, hey, I've got a sponsor on this weekend, or if we understand that somebody's really looking, we'll try and pay attention. We try to find good stories to tell about teams and drivers, to make it captivating, to make it interesting as well. But that's the hardest part, is you have to be able to show that. The good news with TV, you have ratings that you can show on social media and websites. You can track the traffic on a website, or you can find the engagement through social media, which is helpful. But these are all things that you have to present and say, hey, look, we have 1,000 people that are watching this show on a weekly basis. If you're doing a show like this, for instance, if a team was to do a weekly update on their social media channels and had 1,000 people watching every week, well, that becomes of interest to someone who's got advertising and disposable dollars to spend and to try to increase their business. So it's that kind of thing that you need to do to attract whether it's a small partner or even a larger one.
Todd, I'm going to lump in a fan question sort of into my next question. My buddy Brian at Brian 3 Dale on Twitter wants to know what took you from to racing from radio, and my spin on that also is how is your new TV show?
Well, the short version is they kicked me out of radio, and the longer version is, and I won't go too long, but the longer version is I was starting to do a couple of, this was back in the mid 90s. I had a full-time radio gig, and I was doing a couple of races. That's when I started with Joel and his dad, Jim Robinson, doing NASCAR at the time. And it was in 2000. I think, yeah, it was the year 2000. The company I was working for was in the process of being sold. And then eventually the transaction closed, the sale got approved, because all has to be approved by the government. Mm-hmm. So when the new owners came in, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks later, it's, new owner, we want our own people in. So they cleared out, I don't know, 40 or 50 of us at the same time. And it's unpleasant and unsettling. But at the same time, I thought, well, and I'd wanted to expand to do more motorsports coverage. If this is going to happen, now's the opportunity to do it, because I got a little bit of a severance package, so I have a little bit of comfort for a while, and now's the time I'm going to have to try to do this. So that's when I really started working in motorsports and working freelance for myself. So the way I still do now. So that's how it involved. I got kicked out. Is how it is. A
little bit of a motivation, eh?
Well, and that's kind of it. It's just now's the opportunity. So I don't really have a choice now, and I gotta eat every now and again. So I better find something that I can do, and I've been doing it and loving it ever since. And I always tell people, if I can do this and not have to get a real job, then I've won the game, and I'm winning the game. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And to give you a bit of an answer on your other question, as Cam's cat walks by, I think this is the third or
always.
That's okay. It's okay. It's all good.
Always coming by.
I'm really surprised that my dog Larry hasn't come through yet. So that's inevitable before the end of this.
She loves being on camera, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so the other part, the new TV show on Rev TV Canada is called Rev Culture. And we're actually shooting more episodes next week, which is great. It's a really fun show. I'm happy that we got to do it. We talked about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it for a long time, but we want to tell stories about Canadians in motorsports and their successes, their challenges, whether they're drivers, whether they're team members, whether they're partners and sponsors, people that run and organize different series. So that's kind of the approach that we're taking with it. So I'll tip you off a little bit. And one of the guests that we're going to talk to next week is Daniel Morad, who ran in the Rolex 24 and running the Pinty series a couple of times, and Mark Wilkins, who ran in the IMSA Pilot Challenge series as well, is also we're gonna talk to him next week. So, and I got a couple of others as well. And we're starting slowly, and we're kind of starting to ramp up as we get closer to race season and we see what kind of a year we're going to have here. But ideally, we're doing it on a new show every week, starting probably a little bit later on in the spring. But it's fun. So thanks for asking, and I hope everyone enjoys it. Rev Culture on Rev TV, Monday nights at 9. It debuts and repeats several times.
There you go, folks.
There's the plug right there. It's perfect.
Nice.
Absolutely perfect. So let's talk about that transition. Being on pit road, you're on TV. You come from radio. How is it being in charge of your own show now?
It's a little challenging to look after so many details. A lot of, just to compare it to the Pinty series, Joel's the producer and Joel Robinson looks after so many details that the rest of us on the crew don't have to think about, which makes our life a lot simpler. It has him going prematurely gray, but it's making our life a lot simpler. So a lot of those details now in this show that I'm doing, I have to take care of and look after myself, whether it's organizing and finding guests. I've been, on the phone and sending emails to book guests and schedule times, to find B-roll to supplement the interviews that we do, so we can have some coverage and show some of the racers that and the races that they're in. So it's that kind of thing that's organized. It's a lot of detail stuff that you have to take care of. So which is okay. I do also like to be in control sometimes. So that's that works out all right too.
The keyword was sometimes.
Yeah.
We have a fan question from KC on Twitter. And we kind of answered it during the Bun Sun segment, but we'll go over it a little bit more. All the years you've been wearing the fire suit on pit road, have you ever raced yourself or had the urge to? And I'm going to say the urge has probably been there.
Yeah. The urge is definitely there. It's getting someone to hand over the wheel and say, sure, hop in my race car of, $100, $200, $500 million and take it for a spin. Yeah. So I have done a few racing schools. I have done a few driver days, high performance. I've driven open wheel cars. I've driven stock cars. I drove this was a lot of years ago, but I got to do when tobacco sponsorship was still part of motorsports years ago. Players and the players racing team organized a day for some of us to go out, and the players team drivers were the instructors for the day, which was a gas. So it was Lee Bentham, JF Dumoulin was there, as a matter of fact, and a whole bunch of others, including the late Greg Moore, who was there and he had a wicked sense of humor, and he was a lot of fun. So, and I'll tell you the Greg Moore story too. So Greg always rented a big, fast, not a high performance car, but a big luxury car with a big motor in it. Mm-hmm. And this day, I believe it was a Lincoln sedan that he had, which had a ginormous V8 in it and was very, very powerful. And Greg liked to drive quickly, and he liked to accelerate quickly. So on this day, he took the rental car back, and he did this at the day we did our school, and he told me he did it a number of other times. He stopped and had to buy a new right rear tire for that car before he brought it back because he wore it out. And that is my favorite story. I love that story.
That is the best.
Oh my God, I miss that guy so much.
Oh man.
Gotta
love burnout.
Our very first racing hero was Greg Moore. So to hear that is so cool. Todd, I want to say just a little bit. I feel like I used to hear you on calls for the Molson Indy way back. I want to say, did Global TV ever do and were you part of that?
Yes.
In Jim Taddy, I want to say. Am I right?
With the Tat Man, Jim Taddy. Yes, guy.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because it was 2000. It was 2001 when the rights switched from CBC to Global, and they had not announced who their announcing crew was going to be. And this was the time that I was trying to get in and do more motorsports. So I called Global TV and said, "Hey, so I'm looking for the person in charge of this." Thankfully, the receptionist, whoever answered the phone, put me through to someone. Was not there. I got I don't know if it was the station manager or somebody's voicemail, and again, huge stroke of luck. Again, called me back. I was at work, and they left me a voicemail message of who the producer was of the telecast. So I was able to call. It was the man's name was Ed Milliken, and Ed's retired now. But Ed produced a lot of hockey. The broadcast company, it was a Molson Indy. It was Molstar Productions, and Ed was a producer. And he said, "Well, I don't know. I pretty much got my crew locked up. I don't know. I'll sit and talk to you though. When do you want to talk to me?" I said, "Anytime you want." He said, "Well, I'm leaving town tomorrow." I said, "I'll be in this afternoon." So I went in. We had a chat and an interview. And I left thinking I have no hope in getting this gig. And just because I'd never done IndyCar before. And he a couple of days later, again, it was voicemail, left me a message, say, yeah, okay, I'll hire you. You're going to be one of my pit reporters.
Wow.
So yeah, I had a huge horseshoe hanging around me somewhere that day.
Well, the reason I brought that up is that was my introduction to racing. Was every year we would watch the Molson Indy, and for whatever reason, I always remember Jim Taddy and Todd Lewis from the good old kart days. It was a big
Jim Taddy and Chris McClure and Jan Beekus would work with us as well. So that was the other. Oh yeah, it was a really good group, really fun. We did Toronto, we did Montreal, and we did Vancouver for a number of years. It was an awful lot of fun. So
we really wish that we could continue for hours and hours and hours, and we probably could, because the stories have been phenomenal. You came up in one of our discussions as one of the first guests we wanted to get, and you got your show, so we wanted to give you a little bit of time to deal.
Appreciate that. Always looking for free publicity. That's always good.
That's what we're here for. You actually had a part in this show happening, whether you realize it or not. You and I spoke at Jukasa in 2019, and you said that if you're passionate enough to just go for it, and as long as you like it, and as you're passionate about it, people will see that. And so this show's continued from that, and we're just so psyched to have you on the show. Like we definitely want to have you on again. Graydon, take it from here before I start welling up.
No, absolutely, Todd. Owen and Riley, we're super excited. Over the years, as we've seen you guys at the races, when we pop up and say hi. So once I said that we had Joel coming on, and Adam and Dave, and now yourself, it's been a great time for them. It hasn't been too hard making questions up to ask you. So thanks very much for your time. All the best with your TV show, and hopefully we'll see you this summer.
I appreciate it. Happy to join you guys anytime. It was thank you for the nice words and nice compliments too, Cam. That was really nice, and I'm glad that you listened and you followed it. I always worry that sometimes I don't spend enough time or talk to people enough at the racetrack, because I'm sometimes busy. But don't worry about anybody. If you're hesitant to stop me and say hello or whatever, then please do. It's always all right. And I may not be able to spend a lot of time, but I will, and I'm happy to do it. So, and I'm happy to come back and join you guys anytime. Thanks for having me.
Well, guys, definitely fan side. If you tune in for us, you have to tune in. Rev TV Canada, watch Rev Culture. Like I said, Mondays at 9. Mondays at 9.
Mondays at 9.
With Todd Lewis, Canada's pit reporter. Thank you to Remax Jack for sponsoring this episode, and we will see you guys next time for another episode of Fanside on racecanada.world and YouTube.